That's a funny story. Now, over the years when I started studying with Sheikh Ayub, like I said, I started my real studies with Sheikh Ayub. Initially, me and Sheikh Ayub, I studied, with Sheikh Ayub, I studied the Tajweed, studied Qur'an and a little Hadith with him. He's in Cincinnati. Brothers and sisters can make dua for him because in November he just had a double lung transplant. So, but he's still alive. I talked to him a few days ago. He called me. So he's doing all right. So, well, I was studying with Sheikh Ayub, right? And I began studying Arabic with Sheikh Ayub initially. Once we started studying Arabic, we studied the Medina courses. He had the three book Medina courses that we started with. So I studied that with him. And once I finished that book with him, he had advised me to try to get with initially Sheikh Hamza Yusuf. So he wrote a letter, and I wrote a letter, and I sent it to the Zaytuna Institute at the time to try to contact, because he says he's probably the best person, because I mean he's of an Indian nationality, so I mean his English is just fine to me, but you know he says the best person. He always used to tell me the best person he knows that knows the Arabic as a native English speaker was Sheikh Hamza Yusuf. So he said he advised me to try to get in contact with Sheikh Hamza Yusuf and maybe he'd be able to help. So that's what I did. He wrote a letter and I wrote a letter to Sheikh Hamza Yusuf at the Zaytuna Institute, and eventually, and it was a couple of months before I heard anything. And they had said that they had discontinued their prison outreach program, and the letter was forwarded to Tayba. That was, I want to say 2010. That had been like 2010 or 9. I'm not so sure. Like I was saying, like, got my first letter from them, and they were saying we'll be, you know, we got this letter it was forwarded to us from Zaytuna. So, and that was my first interaction with Tayba. Yeah, well, I first started studying the Mukhtasar of Akhbar. So that was the book I started with. But the learning habits book, and you know, it was teaching the basics of worship, wudu and salah, and some in the beginning of Tayba and some things on tasawwuf. You know, the internal aspects of the heart. So, you know, once I got that book, and the idea was implanted that you should try to memorize the book. So, I always was like, okay, I'm going to study this book first. I'm not going to initially try to memorize it because, you know, it looked like, at the time it was a long book. I mean, but it wasn't really a long book. At the time, you know, first starting out, I was like, oh man, memorize all this? This is a lot. So yeah, I was looking at it like, oh man. But you know, starting out when you say memorize something, it's like, wow, hold on, I just memorized a few verses of the Qur'an, and you talking about memorize the whole book. You know, even though it's not that long, but seemingly once you look at it, you say, well, that's a lot of lines in there. But I continued, I read it, studied it, and then, you know, I said, I'm going to try to do the mahdara, and the memorization of it. Right. So I started, now, when I first started, I probably learned the first section within like a month. But then I had stopped doing it, you know, stopped trying to go further because it becomes difficult. The repetitive, you have to be very repetitive in it. You have to do it every day, first off, and you have to do it for hours a day. It's not, you can sit down and read it 2-3 times and then go do something else. You have to do it so often to keep it going, to memorize it, that it became, you know, after a while, I just learned how to pace myself and find out how it works for me initially. So, alhamdulillah, I began, but the study habits came from Sheikh Ayub, because he used to be on me when I was when you had me memorizing the Qur'an and things out of the Qur'an. So I had little experience with that, memorizing the Qur'an. So I used those lessons to memorize this book, the Mukhtasar al-Akhdar. So that was my first interaction with the text. Yes, I ended up finishing it. I called Sheikh Rami, spoke with him about it. Because before I buy it, this is not the first time I had spoken with Sheikh Rami. I spoke with Sheikh Rami prior to that. And he encouraged me to do the Mahdara, even if it's just parts of it, learn what I can, and then, and we'll check back in and we'll see how far we got. So once I finished it, I called Sheikh Rami, of course, and say, I think I finished the Mukhtasar al-Akhdari. I think I finished memorizing it. I think I might be ready to go over it with you and see, how well I understand it. So, we set a schedule for that, and we eventually did it. And alhamdulillah, the first time I did it, I went over it with him. I was very, very nervous, so I was kind of messing up, and some of the stuff wasn't present in my mind at the time. So, but he told me the next time we got called back the next day, and I was much more relaxed the next day, and I actually finished it very well the next day. And that was once I finished that, we went over with questions, and eventually, he gave me the ijazah for that, for the Mukhtasar. Next, the next fifth book I had was the Maliki Fiqh, the 102, I believe it was, pertaining to the Ibn Ashir, Murshid al-Mu'in, guidance for the seekers. So I went into the Murshid after that and began studying that, which was because he told me, this is going to be much easier to memorize because of the rhythm that comes with the with the rajas. So with the poetry, it's very different. The rhythm that comes with it, it's it's much easier to learn than the nathar of Mukhtasar, the prose of how it's written in Mukhtasar. It's not really a rhyme to it, and just phonetics. It's very, very, very much more. It's much easier to learn phonetically. Yeah. So we began learning that, and it's expanded upon what was in the Mukhtasar. It went from not just the prayer, not just the wudu and the times of prayer, but it went through basic things on such as fasting and hajj and zakat, and last chapter being the chapter of tasawwuf. So yeah, it went through it had a broader touch, and it kind of rounded you out as far as pertaining to your maharim lisan, the prohibitions of the tongue, the birr walidain, the rights of the parents, how to study Islam, which is a book pertaining to how the essentials of learning is. So I went through also, shall I forget, Imam al-Tahawi's book, Aqidah al-Tahawiyya, so, and that one was a very good book, the Aqidah. It was the Tayba Sharh. I went over that also with Sheikh Rami, and subsequently all of these books I had went through the Mahdara with Sheikh Rami, eventually given ijazah for all of those. The Siraj al-Salik, which I'm presently studying now, I have a few, I'm probably 2/3 of the way through it. Inshallah, I hope to finish that soon. All of them are memorized. All of them are memorized, especially the rajas, especially the poems I memorized. Those are much easier. ابن عاشر يقول عبد الواحد بن عاشري مبتدئا بسم الله القادري الحمد لله الذي علمنا من العلوم ما به كلفنا صلى وسلم على محمد وآله وصحبه والمقتدي وبعد فالعون من الله المجيد في نظم الأبيات لليمي تفيد في عقد الأشعار وفقه مالكي وفي طريقة الجنيد السابق. These are those are the easier ones, yeah. But even the prose of like the Howie's book, that prose was very, I mean, it had a rhythm to it. Even though it's not what you would consider to be religious or anything. It does not like have a poetical meter or anything. But it's very, it has a rhythm. You know, if you like go through like the text, it says, you know, at the beginning, you know, the first couple lines, you know, إِنَّ اللَّهَ وَاحِدٌ لَا شَرِيكَ لَهُ وَلَا شَيْءَ مِثْلُهُ وَلَا شَيْءَ يُعْجِزُ وَلَا إِلَهَ غَيْرُهُ قَدِيمٌ بِلَا ابْتِدَاءٍ دَائِمٌ بِلَا انْتِهَاءٍ لَا يَفْنَى وَلَا يَبِيدُ. So it kind of got a rhythm to it, but even though it's not prose, but it made it easier. Perspective. Probably gave me more perspective on how to view things. You know. Because even though, you know, we might see one thing, those things have multiple facets to it. It's like a diamond, you know. So you have multiple different aspects in which you can look at something, or multiple different ways in which you can look at something that can determine how your reaction may be. So what Islam has given me, or what these books has given me, like, for instance, how to be sad. Yeah, the prohibitions of the tongue. Just about how the tongue and the eyes are such tools that cause more fitna for people than anything else. And if you sit back and you realize that you watch it, you know, just observing your life and observing just the things around you, you will see that, you know, a lot, just nowadays, you know, a lot of problems are being caused because people don't have control over their tongue.
Correct.
Or people don't have control of their eyes. You know, the gossip that goes around, and the mima, the ghiba, you know, all of these things, you know, perpetuating society nowadays to the point that, you know, it causes more problems than anything, but we see it as a good. And, you know, they encourage, you know, they have gossip shows, and they encourage this gossip. But that causes more problem than anything. So I was able to see these things more clearly and adjust my outlook on things, you know, and behaviors. So I would say I became more calm, but also more serious. I probably became more serious than anything, where I take a lot of things seriously, and there's not much room for play in certain matters, because life is serious, and the shortness and the brittleness of life becomes a reality once you understand. Like just from reading, like studying Aqidah Tahawi, the book on the belief systems, Imam Tahawi, the creed. You know, it gives you a perspective on the shortness and the fragility of human existence. You know, and if you just know just reading certain lines of it, and telling you about Allah and Allah's stature, or pertaining to like the kasb, or the acquisition that human has within ourselves, as far as our actions, you know, and our actions are created by Allah. That أفعال العباد هي خلق الله وكسب من العباد, as he says in there, you know, that the actions of the servant are Allah's creation, but the servant, they want what they get, you know, and so the understanding that I have, although I have the irada and I have this khiyara, it's also the aspect that I am also I'm also determined, you know. And the famous statement of Imam Ali comes in the thing when one asked him about qadr, and he told him, well, you have as much control of it if you lift your right leg. And he said, okay, lifted his right leg. He said, now lift your left leg. He said, I can't without putting my right leg down. He said, well, that's how much control you have. To a certain extent, that I have enough to do what I'm supposed to do. And then after that, the trust is in Allah. After that, but I have to do my part. I can't just rely upon, okay, Allah, you know my heart, you know what I want to do. And well, if I don't take the first step, then I go nowhere. You can't rely on it. We get to the point where we become inept, and there's no excuse for being inept, and you can't blame Allah for a person's ineptitude at it being, because Allah is, mashallah, that, whatever Allah wills, but at the same time, you have to do your part. All right, I've had numerous instances where I was teaching. Generally, like Sheikh Ayub would have me teach. A lot of the guys that were coming into Islam and, teaching Salah and teaching Wudu and teaching Tajweed in Arabic. So oftentimes, I was considered the one that, that brothers would come to and ask questions if they had a problem. And it still happens to this day. Some of the brothers that I talk to in the streets, they ask me a couple questions. So that's what Tayba has allowed me to know how to answer questions. After being on the phone with Sheikh Ami, he asked me questions, even though he knows the answers. But he allowed me to begin to learn how to interact or learn how to answer questions appropriately. Challenge what you say also, because you got to have an understanding of what you say. So I oftentimes have been able to, if the question was presented, if I knew the answer, I would give the answer, or if I didn't, I would have access to a book or something that had the answer in it, and then answer that question.